Well, now the impasse over the VAT increase has again raised questions on the stability of the Government of National Unity. The second largest party in the grouping took the matter to court despite being part of the governing coalition. But as we continue to see how this story continues to unfold, we speak now to party spokesperson Karabo Khakhau. Karabo, good evening to you and thank you so much for joining us. Yesterday, we're able to see that order of the court and, of course, then speak as a nation about just what the Western Cape High Court then declares with the settlement out of court. There is, of course, the question about the Democratic Alliance now really starting to mull about what it prioritizes at this time as we get into the new week. Perhaps you can talk to us about that, the process that you expect to unfold as we get to Budget 3.0. I think that's a great place to start.
Good evening, Lady. Thank you so much for having me, and good evening to your Newzroom Afrika viewers. So what we expect moving forward is what we had been saying is going to have to happen from the onset, which is that Parliament has to start from scratch and reconsider a fiscal framework, new budget altogether. So that's what we expect moving forward. But we've won the VAT matter with South Africans, and that's now behind us. But one thing that we've always maintained as the Democratic Alliance, which now needs to play center stage here, is that South Africans need jobs. How the state configures its finances is supposed to be in alignment with job creation, with economic growth and poverty alleviation. That's what we want to see. And that's why there's been a strong emphasis from the onset, Lady, on having concessions on our rail and freight, on our ports and harbours to make sure that they work properly. You would know that we're losing about 5% of our GDP by not having them optimally functional. That departments such as agriculture, trade and industry, forestry, fisheries and environments, then the private sector could be able to unlock job opportunities that will enable South Africans to live dignified lives where they are able to put food on the table for themselves and their families. That is the ultimate goal of the Democratic Alliance. And that's why even our fight against VAT was as strong as it was, because that was a direct threat against South Africans' ability to put food on the table. But moving that alone from the table is not enough, because yes, people are not going to be paying more for food, but we still have a cost of living that is unbearable for most South Africans. Even now still, even if we don't have a VAT increase, people still don't have opportunities to go to work and live dignified lives. And that the opportunity now with the 3.0 is to make sure that we get that rolling and we're able to focus on that.
And I don't know if you were able to hear the points that were made by Julius Malema there as he responded to that order of the court. And one of the things that he says in the clip we just played is that the ANC and the Democratic Alliance have failed the people of South Africa. He talks about whether or not we're going to have, I suppose, the add-ons or additions that were given to those that are grant recipients. And I'm keen to hear that. But I want to sit with the politics of what he's saying. That he says the Democratic Alliance and the ANC have failed the people of South Africa. What is happening with the clearing house mechanism, Karabo? Is it working? When you have the two leading members of the Government of National Unity, unable to resolve things in the Western Cape High Court, needing to preside over issues, is that not a concern that we need to then rely too much on the courts for parties within the GNU to start really reaching some sort of solution?
Let's first clarify this, Lady. Malema is not correct in his assessment. You can't blame the Democratic Alliance for being true to South Africans who made it clear that they needed somebody in the GNU to fight for them and to take their interests seriously. So it is very opportunistic for Ndate Malema to want to pin us into the same box or same frame as the ANC, as Action SA, as BOSA, as Rise Mzansi, as the IFP, as the Good, the PAC, all of the political parties that voted in favor of a VAT increase and still had the audacity to come back with a press briefing to lie to the Republic about what the actual truth of the matter is as far as the retraction of Minister Kotongwana's increase. So the issue here is what is fair that I could grant is that it shouldn't be that we're supposed to go to court before we can get a resolution on something that is as ABC as the VAT matter. particularly because the DA has maintained that the problem with the previous tabulation of the budget or the fiscal framework was not a revenue collection problem, but an expenditure problem. And we were able to table alternatives to fit the bill or to fit the gap that we would see if we do not have that, without having to take money away from essential services such as education, such as health, such as policing, as well as social relief for people who depend on social relief in the country. So we're able to show Minister Godongwana and the ANC where else we can fit the money. The problem here is the reason why we ended up having to go to court is because the ANC genuinely do not operate in good faith, which is hard. It's hard to keep that kind of marriage afloat. But alas, we are here, we're committed because we know what's at stake and we know why that marriage has to succeed for the best interests of South Africans. But if negotiations with the ANC were done in good faith, had they from the onset understood the severity of the problem as far as the lived realities of South Africans is concerned, there would have been no need for us to go to court, because all they had to do is to take a 6-pronged plan solution that we tabled. All they had to do was to copy paste and roll it out, and we would have been finished.
I need to wrap this up, but I wanted to ask you this final question. Is it to say then that when you of course argue that the ANC does not argue in good faith, that you believe that the clearinghouse mechanism that was set up for disputes within GNU was null and void and that it doesn't work? I'd like to hear you respond to that. And then a final question, if you just put those together for me, just in the interest of time. In a few moments, we will be in conversation with Chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance, Mr. Joe Maswanganyi. One of the issues taken up by the Democratic Alliance as well was the process that was followed in the adoption of that fiscal framework. So a point that you want to communicate or certainly hear from him.
Yeah. Okay. Firstly, you're correct. If the clearinghouse mechanism worked properly, then we would have been easily able to ventilate. And that's why in the beginning of this year, we called for a reset on how talks within the GNU work, so that we can be able to resolve our matters neatly and are able to govern the Republic and make sure that the Republic has confidence in their government. So it is very important that we are able to see that mechanism work, that all parties in the GNU are able to respect it, and we're able to find consensus. As far as the process that was incorrectly followed in the Finance Committee is concerned, but Ntate Maswanganyi are not new in politics. He didn't arrive yesterday. So it is a shame altogether to have to deal with chairpersons who just blunder on minute, very, very small procedural things on how a meeting is supposed to be conducted. It shouldn't be the case. If that person was deployed by the Democratic Alliance, hell would have broken loose, because it's embarrassing altogether that Parliament goes to court and for the court to tell you you don't know how to read your rule book and you don't know how to apply your rule book. It shouldn't be. But we hope that we have learned from our lessons, that moving forward we will know how to chair a meeting, how to conduct it in a sober manner, so that the people of the Republic can have faith in their parliament, in their politicians, in how they conduct decisions in their best interests.
All right. Karabo, that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Karabo Khakhau is, of course, spokesperson there with the Democratic Alliance.